You are on.
Hello, California. It's good to be home. It's actually, thank you, Marcus, so much for having me. It's a real honor to be included in this event today. When the California Republic, and that's a when, not an if, achieves independence,
That's right.
you will have the popularity in red states of Nancy Pelosi to thank for it. This is such a beautiful moment in time, such an incredible circumstance that we find ourselves in. I was born in San Francisco. I was raised in the Bay Area, college in Claremont, enlisted in the Marines, and did boot camp and MCT out of Camp Pendleton and MCRD San Diego. I'm definitely Cali, born and raised like that, although I have to admit I did go and settle in California East, also known as Arizona, where we have an incredible influx of people coming out from California because of the separation that's happening, right? Now, I want to step back for a second before I talk about anything else about what I'm doing or my policy, why I'm so excited about this moment and events like this and what this means for the future of humanity. Because it's really easy when you're so focused on a specific mission, as you should be in activism. It's really easy to get distracted, right? Because you want to take on every little cause out there. You know, my start was with Iraq Veterans Against the War, and it was a very tactically focused effort. You know, coming out of the military, we were all very, strategy minded. Oh wait, no, this was in the Bush era, so it was strategery back then. But it was a very directed form of activism where we had a clear mission, clear goals, clear guidelines, things that we wanted to achieve. And it's the same thing when you say, it's about California independence. Because you know from the bottom of your heart from the beginning that this is something pure and beautiful and righteous. And then you get focused on that goal. And I think it's worth stepping back and remembering, why are we doing this? Why push for secession? And I say this not just as a supporter of secession for California, but as a matter of principle, being that there's nothing more American than, declaring your independence. How do we get here, right? It's not because we want to draw the map differently, right? I mean, it's not because this is such a beautiful flag and we want it to be a national flag instead of a state flag, right? There's something much deeper and more significant to what we're doing than that. You know that as Californians, your lives will be improved without being tied to the burden of the United States federal government, right? Yeah. And you've all probably got different issues that motivate you, that lead you to the conclusion that this is the best place to put your efforts and direct your love and attention and energy towards making the world a better place. Just earlier today, I don't know if you guys, I guess you probably didn't notice because we got here a little later today, but we got here with our campaign bus, No Force One. Yes, you can figure that out. Okay, I don't have to spoon feed you the punchlines here. No Force One, we travel in this bus all over the country, and everywhere we go, it's like impromptu campaign stops. People see on the bus, it says, America is too good for this government. And then the big slogan across the side, we don't have to be united under one government to be united in American values. Such a great conversation starter. I get to drive around with a billboard that says that everywhere I go. Just today, right here, we got approached by someone whose motivation in activism. He's been a Libertarian gubernatorial campaign manager. He's been active with the party in the state. It was because his brother was shot by a cop because he was holding a cell phone that looked like a firearm. You guys have heard these stories before, right? And he goes, Adam, well, you're running for president. What are you going to do about this? And I said, well, look, I'm not going to stand here and bullshit you and say, look, I've got the 10-point plan and I'm going to reach into your community and your home and solve every single problem for you. But even with something like that you don't connect to this idea of localization, because police are local phenomena. It's about 1,000 Americans who are killed by police needlessly every year in this country. There's no excuse. When you have the y'all are activists, right? Like, you know you've seen enough bad cop videos on YouTube at this point. I don't have to underscore the problem, but even that we don't really connect to localization of government. You go, well, the federal system, the concentration of power means that those cops in your community aren't serving you directly. Not only are they part of this centralized legal system where they're asked to enforce drug laws on behalf of politicians paid for by pharmaceutical companies, but they are militarized and protected from liability by those central authorities that run that legal system. We're going to end the drug war. We're going to stop enforcing federal laws. We're going to localize the authority to oversee police to the community level so the people who are serving are actually serving people in that community, not enforcing laws that people in that community have no desire for whatsoever. But I guess you guys, I hear you're talking about the size of the California economy, and if California went independent, all the just economic things that get freed up, all the different ways that the rest of the country would say, oh yes, all those socialist schemes in California are going to be that much more. But yeah, they are going to be that much more efficient without you sending money to the feds, having parts of it siphoned off to feed the bureaucracy, the corruption, the special interests. And this is where I have to connect this to something even deeper about secession, declaring your independence. Now, I talk about this as localization, getting governments down to the community level. Because a community is something that's voluntary, right? You choose to be a part of a community. You can choose to leave a community if it doesn't suit you. It's a difference between what we have today and that ideal world where we're forced today, whether we like it or not. If you're born in this country, yeah, you can leave and go to a territory organized by another large centralized government and then be subject to American foreign policy, which is usually worse. And what we're talking about here is so fundamental to human rights. It's not California rights, it's not states' rights, it's not the right to secede, but the right to say, I as an individual, I have rights. And you, the collective, no matter if it's the other people in this room or if it's a bunch of people in Washington, D.C., you don't have a right because you don't like what I'm doing to interfere with it in any way if I'm not hurting anybody. And this is so beautiful. The reason I'm so excited, I'm kind of an ideologue, libertarian to the core. Because to me, libertarianism is universal nonviolence. And it is so mispresented. And even in my own ways, I have misrepresented it over the, 2006 I got out of the Marines and went to D.C. 13 plus years of full-time activism now.
When you started opposing the Iraq War.
Yeah, in case you're wondering where all the gray hairs are coming from. It's not just the depleted uranium. But yeah, so having been in this that long, what I realize is that we as libertarians have been playing the political game. Saying our philosophy, which is really about ethics, it's about self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, this is at the core of it, has been mispresented as a series of political issues. I'll give you an example real quick. Most of you think of libertarian as pro-gun, right? Pro-gun rights, at least? Yeah? Okay. And it is. But at a much more fundamental level, it's pro-private property. You have the right on your own land, in your own home, to defend yourself however you see fit, to own a piece of metal in whatever shape you want. And if you're not hurting anybody, I don't have any right. Me and my buddies, me and a bunch of other voters, me and some cops, me and some politicians and some cops and some central bankers and some corrupt special interests. No matter how many of us pile on, we don't have a right to come into your home and tell you what you can and cannot own if you're not hurting anybody. Flip side of that, if you want to ban guns in your home, you have a right to do that. And you should have a right to tell a cop, no, you can't come into my house with that gun. Wouldn't that be a game changer?
Yeah, right.
You have a right then to form a community of people who don't want guns in your community and say, in our voluntary group of people coming together to set rules for each other that we choose to be a part of, we don't want guns in our community. Now, I'm a member of the other tribe, and so the rise of fringe white nationalism in the United States that we see today, by the way, the crying Nazi is in jail again. I get to interview him from jail for my podcast tomorrow. So I follow the hate groups. This is the guy who led the "Jews will not replace us" chant in Charlottesville.
You got to point out to this crowd that you have Jewish heritage.
Oh, that was what this was.
Yeah, and
Was that not obvious enough? The other tribe, yeah.
But then you were called a Nazi.
Yes, well,
They said, ignore the Jewish grandfather.
yeah, right.
Nazi.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been called a white supremacist. And I'm
The Mexican, yeah, no, I love it. The Mexican white supremacist in the room. Thank you. And the Jewish Nazi. So I'm interviewing him tomorrow from jail, and I can talk to someone like that and say, your ideas are as vile and reprehensible as I can imagine. Of anybody who has any kind of credibility or halfway whatever following in the United States, it doesn't get worse than you. Mr. Cantwell, your ideas are disgusting, and I've told him this. And I can still meet him as a human being. And as a libertarian, as someone whose basis of looking at the world is not politics, but ethics first. And say, you want to be disgusting, you have a right to be disgusting. You want to form your little ethno-state, you do it on private property. You don't hurt anybody, you don't force it. Yeah, that's disgusting. I'm not going to live there, but I'm also not going to interfere with your right to do that, right? Like, I might disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. On the flip side, you're a gun-grabbing socialist who wants to live in a nudist commune out in the woods. I'm looking at you, Marcus.
That's me on the
I'm not going to live there. I'll take my entertainment value from a distance, thank you very much. I hope you guys have regular live streams set up, because whatever. I know it's going to get entertaining. The rest of the country really wants California to go independent, primarily for the entertainment value, but also to get rid of Nancy Pelosi from the U.S. federal government, of course. But I can say, look, I want all of you to have that fundamental right to form communities based on your values to meet your needs. And no matter what your ideology is, this idea of respect for that localization is something that can unite the whole human family, something that transcends ideology, transcends politics, transcends partisanship. We have different aesthetics of how we want the world to look, how we want our communities to look, to operate, the kind of people we want to live with. And when we stop allowing ourselves to be forced into these centralized systems, we can come together in a universal love and respect. Localization is the cure for polarization. Today in the United States, if you're a liberal, you meet a conservative on the street, you kind of have to meet each other as enemies, because you're going to have to fight over national policy that's going to get forced on whoever loses that conversation. And it's not a win-lose proposition here, it's a lose-lose proposition, because the only winners are the ones who control the process. And that's why I'm so excited about what this moment represents, not just for California, not just for the United States, but for all of humanity evolving past the current paradigm that we know today of coercive, authoritative, violent, centralized governments. Thank you for leading the way and being a part of this with the CALEXIT movement.
This is what it looks like. Jewish Nazi, Mexican white supremacist. Our crime,
we talked to conservatives. And I told them, I don't share your values. You don't like me. Why don't you vote me out? And for that, I'm a horrible, bad person, right? And I think you went through that. Watch out. This is how they get you. Okay.
So if I may just a couple quick, no, stay here, man. Just a couple, just a sign off. I have free copies of my book for anybody who wants in the back of the room. Happy to sign them. And we're going to be sticking around through the end of the event, and definitely getting Marcus on a podcast and some of the other organizers.
You
here
were
as well.
invited to dinner. We have dinner coming up.
Excellent.
Would you cover your ears real quick? Just put your hands over your ears real quick.
You're not going to sing.
No. Just cover your ears. We have a birthday cake for Adam. We're going to share with him after this event, and we clean it up. Okay. So. We have you didn't hear any of that. Okay, great. All right, thanks. Well, next speaker's coming up.
Thank you so much, brother.